Hi, welcome to a microcurrent basics class. In this class, what I'm hoping to achieve, whether you're a professional or a consumer, is the understanding of why microcurrent is probably one of the most valuable tools you can purchase. It has stayed in trend since the early 80s, and it continues to build a real loyal following because it's scientifically proven. It works without initiating healing for a responsive regeneration, and it's something ongoing. One thing that I'd like to say about microcurrent is it's a lifestyle. It's like a diet. It's like working out. This isn't something that you do once and then you just go, oh, I did it, but it didn't work. Because microcurrent works when you do it consistently over a long period of time. So we're going to go right into the presentation. There will be room for question and answer after, and then we will be doing a microcurrent treatment on ourselves, and I will be showing you different ways to work either with gloves, the tool, the lift, or probes if that's something that you have. So I'm going to begin to share my screen. And we're going to go ahead and play. So microcurrent, what is it? It's really, really simple. When I first started to write kind of this presentation, I had so many different angles and perspectives I wanted to take. But I realized that this information is something that we need to really learn and understand. So while I am doing this webinar, I'm also going to be talking to you a little bit about the same thing while we're using the microcurrent, because sometimes some people learn through watching, some people learn through doing. But if this becomes a repeat and when we're working on ourselves, it's just there to kind of reinforce what I want you to learn. I got into microcurrent because there's a substantial amount of evidence that it works. It's something that when you choose to do it or you choose to do it on your clients, you know you are giving a treatment that's scientifically sound without creating injury. And I say this because today, clients or you may be facing a host of issues that we're not even aware of. In fact, I was interviewing an immunologist out of Johns Hopkins in New York, and she was saying how if anyone has had COVID, they operate at almost a 75% higher inflammatory rate. Now, what does this mean? If we're doing microneedling on someone that we don't have an adequate enough information on an intake sheet, we're not making them younger. We're actually aging them, especially if they're over the age of 50. In this webinar, I'm going to go in and kind of show you why in our industry we have to be very, very careful on the tools that we choose to help our clients regenerate. Microcurrent is always going to be safe. So microcurrent, what is it? It is a subtle flow of electrons that, I want to make sure I have the right presentation here. Okay, I just took out my slide of who I am. But anyway, my name is Jane Mann. You guys kind of already know, but that was the slide I had kind of missed. Anyway, microcurrent is a low UA. And what that means is U is the Greek symbol for millionth. A is a symbol for amps. It's a millionth of an amp. It's a very, very low, tiny current that penetrates the skin barrier and it activates the cells. This current can recreate or mimic the body's electrical current and assist in regenerating. This was found by two German doctors, Neer and Sackman, and they received a Nobel Prize in the 80s because they were researching diabetic ulcers and how to heal them. And so when in their research and what they were doing and studying the cell, they created a minute, and you have to imagine if we can't see cells, how tiny this little clamp is. But this clamp was able to isolate a cell. And when they isolated the cell, they could see that the cell had I don't know how I'm supposed to let this person in. The cell had, okay, I'm sorry, I have to stop the share to let this person in. And then this will be the last time we do this. Okay. So this cell had little voltage gated doors around it. And when stimulated, these doors would forcibly open. So Nair and Sackman kept going through over and over what could stimulate these little doors. And they were using a lot of milliamps. Now, a milliamp is 1,000th of an amp. It is something that you see in chiropractic offices. It's used for pain management because a milliamp scatters the nerve signals. And so we see a reduction in pain. But a milliamp, in which you'll see like these EMS units for body toning, it's like shouting at the cell to get a job done. It will work, but a microcurrent is like whispering and asking gently. So one time, as they were in the lab, Nair and Sackman had a deficient unit and it wasn't operating properly, but it opened the cell voltage doors. And they were blown away because this forced a metabolism. This forced a sodium potassium exchange in that cell. And this erased cellular trauma. This started to revive the cell. And this current was a microcurrent. So that's how microcurrent even came to play. When we found that microcurrent could stimulate the cell's natural activity, it became a way to reduce inflammation and to generate healing. But as a lot of beauty instruments today, they start out in the medical and they kind of migrate to the beauty. A higher UA or higher microcurrent releases more electrons. A lower UA releases smaller. So how this is seen in your unit, so if you've got the 3800 or you've got the MyoLift, when you press that plus button, you're increasing the milliamps. When you decrease it, you're decreasing the milliamps. So at a low, you don't feel it so much. At a high, you feel it more. Every single microcurrent unit on the market has a positive and a negative. And all of them have different shapes and different powers and different waveforms. And this is really how they market their tool as better, different, or more precise. But the fact is, every single one of these units utilizes microcurrent. And microcurrent is the magic. It's really how you choose to use it and you want to use it. So another thing that you hear a lot of times with microcurrent is waveforms. Oh, mine has a complex waveform and it navigates, the impedance or to the cell. But the waveform carries this gentle flow of electrons. So you've got microcurrent emitting electrons into the skin, but it's got to go through something and it goes through a waveform. Many companies are going to say that their waveform is best, but where the waveform is most important is the clarity of the waveform. And this is done because we're delivering electrons to a cell through almost like a cocktail straw. And we've got a certain type of waveform to navigate the impedance or the resistance of the skin. To back up for those of you that aren't estheticians, resistance of the skin is natural. You've got a top layer called the stratum corneum, and the stratum corneum's sole job is to keep things out. It's even to keep skincare out. So these invisible electrons will penetrate the bilayers of the cell to reach the mitochondria. And this is done in the purity of the waveform. So that's why a lot of times we'll say, get a unit that is FDA approved or FDA acknowledged, because we know that the waveform is true and genuine. When people get on Alibaba and they're like, oh, I got an LED and a microcurrent unit all in one, if it's not FDA approved to know that there's a clarity in the waveform, I don't know if it's really getting there or it's just kind of stinging your face to make you feel like it. A sine waveform is typically the most basic of the delivery systems, along with a square. Now, a lot of people feel that a square is more efficient because it mimics the brain waveform to the neurotransmitter of the muscle. Many people combine a sine and a square. And this is probably way too much information than you want to know. But if you're using one of the myolifts or you're using, and I'm sure even the Axon, Joe Ventura, Joe's a chiropractor, so he kind of deals at a different kind of perspective of microcurrent, but his knowledge is very deep and grasp. So I'm sure his machine is accurate with the delivery system. I know Neurochus is very accurate in its delivery system, and probably, you know, between the Foreo and the New Face, all of them have effective waveforms to create change in the skin. So I don't want you to get hung up on if what you think your machine has, because this point is just really, this is how the electron is delivered to the cell. So I want you to read this slide because it's pretty direct, but we're going to get into ATP now. If you're talking to your client, you can kind of simplify this, and I'm trying to think of the gal, but you know who you are. We talked about how to explain this to your client. Microcurrent utilizes micro-sized pulsating current to resonate with the body's own bioelectrical exchanges that take place at a cellular level. This is a fancy way of saying that microcurrent stimulates the cell to do what it's supposed to do. When we hit the age 60 or even 50 at menopause, our body loses 60% of its microcirculation. Microcurrent has been shown to increase circulation 48% the moment that you put it on the skin. So just doing microcurrent as with gloves on as a form of massage is doing more for your client than gua sha will. And gua sha is great, and I'm not knocking it because it's amazing for reducing lymph. But microcurrent with gua sha is going to be 6 times more effective. So microcurrent charges the cellular activity by giving it the energy it needs to do. And that's going to bring us to ATP. There's 5 things about ATP that we really need to understand. And if it's not something that you're familiar with or you're new to this industry, I'm sure, I know that when I went to school, they didn't even cover ATP. But basically, it is a nucleotide and it's a building block. And it's referred in a lot of articles you may read as a cellular currency because it's literally an energy transfer or a power source that makes the cellular life possible. This includes all activity, DNA replication, mitosis, regeneration, healing, protein synthesis, which is the creation of collagen and elastin, and obviously muscle contraction. Since skin is our largest organ, it requires massive amounts of ATP to function properly. Are you starting to maybe comprehend the significance now of microcurrent? Everything you do, whether it is putting skincare on, if we do microcurrent first, the skin is able to have the energy to utilize the products being delivered. Post-surgical scars, bed sores, large amounts of ATP are required to control all the primary functions, movement of vital minerals, the sodium-potassium exchange, cellular metabolism, damaged tissues, and the body needs the equivalent of their weight in ATP every day. By the time we reach 60, the production has deteriorated nearly half. So this is why when you're like in your 40s, you look really good. And then one day you wake up and you're like, what happened? What happened? The body kind of goes and goes and goes until it can't. And we don't see this subtle kind of change in our tissue till one day it just is there. If you get your clients started on microcurrent at 30, they're going to age so much differently and effectively and youthfully than someone that doesn't. So how does microcurrent generate ATP? So it's thought that is created through a process of Mitchell's theory or chemiosmosis. And it's a little bit of a chemistry lesson here, but your positive probe emits a hydrogen. Your negative probe emits a hydroxyl. And these two are drawn together to kind of attach. And this drawing in together pushes this through the cell, where the hydrogen is picked up by the mitochondria and used. And if you see the image number 4, in this little ATP turbine. So the little dots above the turbine or the cell membrane. And then you've got this little turbine in the mitochondria, and it's collecting ADP and an inorganic phosphate, and it's combining it with the hydrogen from the microcurrent. And now that creates the ATP needed to generate higher cellular function. All units have a positive and a negative. When we put microcurrent on the skin and we create more of a function of ATP, there's an increase in the skin thickness, circulation, and elasticity. Microcurrent is more than just a lunchtime facelift. And I love that somebody said she's never sold it as that, because you were music to my ears. But so many people are sold the machine thinking that microcurrent is just about toning muscles. It does tone muscles, and we're going to go into that aspect as we're doing the facials on ourselves. But it's a lifestyle choice that you need to instill in your client or yourself, because just this habit of keeping and maintaining the ATP is not only going to keep your muscles toned, it's going to keep the skin intact and the barrier intact. When we keep ATP in the muscles, we keep the cells and the muscles toned. But when we keep ATP in the skin cells don't age as quickly. This is one of my favorite photos, and it's actually my neighbor, and they've moved. But if you look at the left side, that's the dad, and you look at the right side, that's the son. Now, the dad is 30 years older, and the son at the time was like 6. If you just kind of cover up the left side and look at the dad, you're kind of like, wow, he's aging pretty good. He's 46, he looks pretty good. But look at the difference in the tissue as people get older. It just suddenly degrades. When you do microcurrent, you're balancing out the free radical damage, the environmental damage, diet and dehydration. In fact, there's a book called The Body Electric where Becker talks about microcurrent being able to even erase cellular trauma. And so when we do microcurrent on skin, you're basically, every time you do it, resetting the cell. And so the cell has just an active function like it used to. It even, that's why you notice a difference when you see rosacea, because we're forcing a sodium-potassium exchange, which increases the calcium. I think we mentioned before, the ideal age is 20 to 30. And little to none skin damage, good diet, non-smoker, no medications, exercises regularly, and good skincare regimen. That clientele will notice results in microcurrent almost immediately. But when we start doing microcurrent older, it's like the difference between the filet that's medium rare and the steak on the right that's well done. Because our tissue is very pliable and hydrated. But when we start doing microcurrent at 50 and 60, our skin is dehydrated. And depending upon your intake sheet with medications, many times the current can't make it through the tissue. And that is why you have to set your client expectation high or low if they're older, because this is going to take maybe 10 to 20 or 30 times to really start to regenerate a difference. It's not something that's an instant change, because we're working with regenerating the person's cells, and the cells together work at regenerating the tissue. So as you do microcurrent more often, you'll get a better result. So let's say you have somebody in your 20s and 30s. Microcurrent every 72 hours is adequate for her, because she is going to be able to maintain that ATP production for 72 hours till her next treatment. But when you have an older client in, and depending upon, we're going to go into her blocking factors, you may have to do it on her, 2 to 3 times a day, and have her doing it at home, because the impedance of the dehydrated tissue is not going to allow that current to reach the cells. So you're going to have to do it more often. And when you first do microcurrent, there's a nice period of hydration. I think it's like maybe 10 hours, 7 to 10 hours. But then that kind of inflated hydration leaves, and they go back to the dehydrated skin. So microcurrent, when they're older, needs to be done more frequently. Things that will make microcurrent really difficult to work: dehydration of the cell and dehydration of the skin. Medications, blood pressure medication. We've got thyroid medication. All of those are very dehydrating. Allergy medication, when the wind blows. And a lot of people are on antidepressants. All of those dehydrate the body. Lack of hormones. Many times when I start to work with a woman that wants to age naturally, I have on hand a hormone replacement therapist, because hormones are so important. If they aren't making estrogen, they aren't going to make collagen and elastin, and that is going to definitely impact how microcurrent works on your client's skin. Photodamaged skin, that's just a sign that there are a lot of free radicals. Now, microcurrent acts as a direct antioxidant by adding an electron to that free radical, but we're going to have to reverse some of the sun damage before we can start to see the lifting and the toning effect that you're wanting to see. Photodamaged skin, we just did that. Low fluid intake. There are a lot of Diet Coke drinkers, wine drinkers. They aren't drinking a lot of water. And you just can't drink water before a microcurrent session. Dehydration is a chronic issue, and water makes the flow of electricity more efficient. It carries it. So if your client's dehydrated or when drinking the night before she sees you, a lot of times you're not going to see a great result. Arid climates, that goes without saying, and high altitude clients, places like Salt Lake City, Denver, places, ski resorts, many times that creates a dehydrated, parched skin. Lifestyle really can affect how microcurrent is going to work and how effectively. Night nurses, surgeons, people that are constantly in a smoky environment, stress, recreational drugs, a lot of alcohol, and anger. And anger kind of fits in it with the fascia component, which we'll kind of talk about as we're doing microcurrent together. Diet, low fluid, high sugars, creating the glycation and more of a hardening of the tissue. So it makes the electrons a little bit harder to penetrate the skin barrier. Processed foods, we're not getting adequate protein to build collagen and to create, the protein synthesis needed. Cravings, late night dinners, skipped meals, all of that places the body in more of a chronic state versus a receptive state. Lymphatic issues. So lymphatic issues, microcurrent is very good for, but we'll work on that first. So if your client is coming in for the skin toning and the lifting, what she's going to notice first is the sculpting and the body's just kind of flushing of the excess fluid. Age has quite a bit to do with it, kind of lifestyle habits. Today we see so much on the phone and the shoulders collapsing in. Lymphatic issues are also created due to incorrect breathing. A majority of clients today are breathing out of their upper rib cage, not their belly, for the diaphragmatic breath. And when they're doing this, the tissue remains cold. And that cold tissue is kind of like a frozen creek versus a fluid stream. And so if the tissue is cold, lymphatic doesn't flow as freely as if they're breathing properly and the tissue is warm, the fluid can flow throughout the ducts. Autoimmune. We're seeing so many people on a high inflammatory rate and autoimmune. Microcurrent is amazing for this, but you will see delayed responses in your client or in yourself. And a sedentary lifestyle. Activity really makes a big change in the ATP as well as the increase of effectiveness of microcurrent. Because if your muscles are active and moving, they require more ATP and blood flow. Microcurrent is far more effective on exercise. Another impeding factor to consider is scar tissue. And so scar tissue is like a big wall blocking the electron from going through. Now, microcurrent can break down the scar tissue, but that can take 2 or 3 months. So if a client has had threads, she's had multiple injections, each time that cannula goes into the tissue, you're creating stripes of scar tissue. So we don't get that fluid movement of electrons. Accidents, TMJ. And I know we had several people here with TMJ. That over chronic use of that muscle creates an inflammation. And so microcurrent's first job is going to be to neutralize that inflammation and to create less pain. Muscle memory, this is just kind of trapped within the fascia and repressed emotions. So that's kind of microcurrent in a nutshell. You're getting a boost of electricity that resonates with the body. It increases ATP in the skin and in the muscles. And that's the magic. You're able to rebuild tissue, dissolve scar tissue, increase tone, skin brightness, microcirculation, tighten skin, a 10 to 20%, assuming that your client is an ideal candidate, all with a non-injurious tool that constantly restores versus injures to regenerate. So we're going to take a couple minutes and talk about what we just did. And it's kind of just stay muted until you have a question, and then we'll go in, we'll start getting prepped for doing microcurrent. Any questions? None? Okay, then let's get out our microcurrent units.
Jane, I have a question on, I have the Pico toner. Does a face oil work okay with that?
I don't necessarily, I think you could get away with the face oil. A gel would be a lot better.
Okay, I think I'm gonna run over to my studio and get a gel. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Can I ask something?
Uh-huh.
So much of that was so fascinating. I like will have to go back and re-listen. I've been trying to take notes, but there's so many unbelievable points. But when you mentioned rosacea, I was trying to follow along with what you said. You said it was forcing sodium.
So you have like a normal cellular metabolism, and that is a sodium potassium exchange. So when the cell kind of gets, it's like waste. And so the cell will let out a potassium, and bring in a sodium. And this exchange keeps the cell the polarity of the electricity right. So it is positive on the outside, negative on the inside. This does this exchange so the cell stays electrically charged. So in this exchange, it's called a action potential. And when we have an action potential, think of like, like when you see a falling star, it's kind of like this burst of electricity. And this burst of electricity is used for nerve transportation. So in the sarcomere of the muscle, we get a minute contraction. And when we continue to work the muscle, we get that muscle to say, oh, I need more ATP. So the body is demanded to produce more ATP. But in rosacea, the case of rosacea, that sodium potassium exchange gets it's kind of mucked up, and there's a calcium signal in with the sodium potassium. So you'll see a calming of the skin, even though it's considered to be very stimulant. Like this is a circulatory thing, and we're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm taking this red skin and now I'm adding more circulation to it. But what it's actually doing is forcing that cell to metabolize. And in that metabolization, it's calming the skin. So if you have active rosacea, pustular rosacea, use a lot of gel and use a pure water-based gel. Now, if you have something like a stem cell molecule or an anti-age or something that you use as well, you could apply that prior, because that's more of an exosome base and that'll be received directly into the skin. But then put a thick coat of a water-based gel and you'll see that they're calmed, because you initiate a healing effect, exactly like they did with the ulcerated wounds. I even did after microcurrent. Oh, I do. You have the Pico toner, right? So I have these little pads I made, and what I'll do is I will take the pins kind of here. Can you see those there? And then I attach this to the pad, and I put a pad on me and I put a pad on the client. And now I'm almost working it like a galvanic, and I hand massage. And I'll do, after a lot of extractions or for fascia release, I'll work the current through my fingers. And microcurrent can be used that way too.
Wow.
So since a lot of you have the lift, I'm going to use the lift. And
Can you show us how you're attaching it to? I don't know if is that right?
yeah,
Yeah, okay.
yeah,
Okay.
it's so easy. People
Yeah.
think it's confusing. You know, something else that I found is conductive is that adipose.
Oh, I just started stalking that. I love it.
So adipose is conductive.
Okay, I'm gonna get it.
And Jane, will I be able to order a smaller, because these are with my Axon, but they
Yes.
don't fit. You put them here, right? But they don't
No,
fit.
okay, so I have a converter that you will use. So these, we'll send them out to you. So what you have is a banana plug on the Axion,
Uh-huh.
and that is a big hole, right? So then we're gonna convert it to a pin. So I have one that it takes the banana and there's a pin on this side. So that's what you need. But wait, those are pins. Let me see those.
But they're big. Sorry, where's my camera?
Let me see them.
They're
Okay, no,
too
those
big.
are pins. So you got a cord, right? With balls on them?
Yes.
So that's what the balls go in your unit. You take that and you put those in there.
So I put these here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it
And
doesn't
then-
matter what side the ball goes on, correct?
Nope.
Okay.
So
Okay. Okay.
now keep your
So-
balls on. Don't take your balls off. Leave them on.
okay.
You're just going to attach the balls to the unit.
Oh.
That black device that you held up, Jenny, like, were you able to attach the Omlif microcurrent attachment just to that black piece, and you can just use it? Yeah, what is that?
So this
Okay,
is
so I
my
don't-
unit, the lift.
So
And
I
then
can use that without it being attached to the Neurotris. Like, I can bring it home and use that.
Mhm.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Yeah. I
And
tried
that
to
came
make
with
this,
it?
huh?
That came with it?
These, yeah, they come with it. We'll go
Okay.
over what you have. So if you're using the MyoLift or the MyoLift, you're going to start with erase. If you're using the Pico toner, you're going to start on program 2. And if you're using my machine, you're going to start on program 1. And we're just going to start out. Oh, you know what? Stop. We're going to do the fascia release first. So take anything you have and let's talk a hot minute about fascia.
Jane,
Yeah?
I'm sorry. What about if you have the 3800? What should you start on?
Well, let's start on oxygenation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we're going to start out right at the collarbone, okay? And I want you to you can even take the handle of the lift if you want. I'm going to put it right underneath the collarbone. I can take my top off too. I told my boyfriend, he's like, you're going to wear that? Because I have a really cute outfit on. And I go, yeah, but I'm going to take off my top. He goes, what kind of class are you teaching? I go, I have another top on underneath. Okay, so we're going to go right underneath. We're going to press down. And now we're going to hold. And we're going to hold. This segment is going to take about 15 minutes of the fascia release. And while we're doing this, you are going to get a quick education in fascia. So, Callie, girl, I want you to go hard. You're doing, I call it a level 3. And here's why. It should hurt. If it's not hurting, you're not going deep enough. Fascia adheres to bone at a force of 2,000 pounds per square inch. Why? Well, we hear about muscles a lot. In fact, muscles really get top billing, but fascia is kind of controls the muscles. And breathing controls the fascia. So right now, take a deep breath in and exhale. I want you to identify where you took that breath from. A lot of people take it from the upper rib cage. And that upper rib cage doesn't activate the diaphragm. The diaphragm is a muscle that's nestled underneath the ribs. And when we breathe properly through our belly, so now I want you to take a breath through your belly, extending your belly out as the inhale, and exhale into the spine. And as I'm doing that, as I'm talking, I want you to practice this. Now, for some of you, it might be really hard. I know for me, a product of the 60s and 70s, we sucked in our stomach. I mean, literally in high school would lay across the stadium sinks trying to zip up our jeans with pliers because they were so tight. And we just learned to breathe through our upper rib cage. But stress, tension, trauma, 90% of clients are breathing through their upper rib cage. And because of this, they're not heating up the whole body. And when we only breathe out of our upper rib cage, we start to tense and our shoulders become forward and our rib cage begins to collapse into our hips. And this collapsing starts to interfere even with the aorta that supplies blood to all the organs. It starts to trap the liver, and the liver gets cold, freezing toxins and fatty liver. And even the carotid artery doesn't function and bring blood supply. And so one of the places that fascia loves to adhere to is the collarbone. Now, as a practitioner, you're going in to do a lift on your client, but if her shoulders almost look like a C when she's laying on the bed, you're not going to get much of a lift that's going to hold because the fascia is always going to pull it out of place. The fascia will always win. So you have to release the tissue. And to do this, it requires holding for at least 3 minutes. It's like setting an ice cube out. We place an ice cube on a warm counter, the ice cube begins to melt. And then we put it back into the freezer. Well, that's fascia. We'll decompress for a bit. We'll get some of that tissue melting, but then it's going to re-solidify. So it's not something you just do once. You can have your clients do this multiple times with the tool. And I have a new tool coming out. I just got some prototypes that I'm so excited about. And I will not be selling it through other vendors. I'll be selling it to spas to sell to their clients. It will not be a direct to consumer piece because it won't make it on the market. You have to educate your client on it. So you're going to hold on the other side and you're going to go down. Now, while you're doing this, I want you to breathe through the belly and the diaphragmatic breathing. Because what we're doing is we're heating this tissue and we're starting to help release all that blood flow. You might find that one side is more sore than the other, and that's really normal because we always are going to have an anchor side and we're going to have a driver side. And the anchor side is the side we stand on, that holds us up. The trigger side, that's the side that, like, if you're standing and you have one hip out and you have your other leg out, that side would probably be your trigger side. That's the side you're going to collapse on. The anchor side is the side that holds up, but that side we collapse on creates the asymmetry in the face. When you guys start biting, you just take a nice bite. Do your teeth hit evenly or they hit at different times? You can nod. Different times or evenly? Different times. So a lot of times the side that hits first is your anchor, is your collapse side. The side that doesn't hit is your anchor side. Do you see how it's all connected? you know, as I was getting in this, and this is for you consumers as well as professionals, you know, as an esthetician enters this industry, she does it because she's kind of like a undercover healer. She just wants people to feel good. You know, we're probably the biggest people pleasers around, and we want people to feel good about themselves. And as people would come to me, I had questions too, because I was aging right along with them. You know, I got into this in my late 30s, and as I hit 60, I was like, wait a minute, like this is really bothering me. And why am I aging like this? And that's so all of this, finding fascia is the key. Fascia is really going to be the key to aesthetics, and for consumers, the key to really staying and looking young. It's not in these fancy tools that you see a lot of influencers. Your two best tools out there are LED and microcurrent. Anything else, it's just you're wasting your time. There's no zombie cell that's going to make you younger. There's no, you know, there's all of these are gimmicks, getting, you know, kind of prying or preying on your insecurity or your desire to look younger. Fascia, diaphragmatic breathing, and microcurrent LED, those will keep you young at a proactive rate. Callie?
I've always wondered, I would love to know what you feel. Radio frequency versus microcurrent. Do you not find that they're on the same?
Not at all. Okay, we're going to move this up. I want you to take this right underneath the ear. And you're going to feel like a hinge, kind of almost in the occiput, but you're
Yeah.
on the side at the sternocleidomastoid. You may find you get more pressure if you put your head on a desk, or you can use it this way. Radio frequency delivers heat. And so now I want you to visualize, you know, a standard skin graph, right? Like you've got the stratum corneum, you have the epidermis, you have the dermis, the subcutaneous fat, et cetera, et cetera. The heat is going through all these layers, and the heat might be just seeming benign, but as heat travels, it compounds in the tissues, and this melts the fat. So if you're someone like me that already has a very low fat content, I look like I have saran wrap. Treatments like Morpheus and just radio frequency, in any little one, is going to give you such a temporary effect, but create so much thermal damage, scarring, and fat loss, that you're just going to have to rebuild and spend more time. Microcurrent is literally just electrons that the body recognizes and utilizes. It's kind of like in skincare. The cells recognize vitamin A, C, and E. That's it. I don't care what antioxidant you put on your skin. If the cell doesn't recognize it, it has to be carried into the lymphatic system. It just becomes an energy drain, and it's more aging. Your exosomes, I mean, I use them, but I'm still kind of on the fence of them, especially if we just came from a skin seminar and somebody spoke on stem cells and exosomes, and it really, I have a lot of respect for him, and he didn't seem to think it was a big deal, like it worked. So now kind of rock your head back and forth and find a part that kind of hurts. This is going to be really good for you, Lauren and Christina, with the TMJ. This is a great one.
It all hurts. None of it feels like
No,
it does hurt.
it doesn't. But here's my new acronym: personal awareness, intuitive nurturing. Pain. Personal awareness, intuitive nurturing. Instead of looking at pain as your cells saying they need space. When we have bound fascia and tight muscles, the cells don't have adequate space to metabolize. And so we have to release this tissue in order for the optimal cellular function. And so as you do this, and as you guys hit it, that you're really in a lot of pain, around 3 minutes, you're going to notice that it starts to dissipate, that it's really okay. We're not going to do it now, but for the girls that struggle with TMJ, you can place it right here. It's kind of this little point. It's right with that jaw and the ear. And you're going to hold it here, and that's going to hurt really bad too. But that's a good one for you because you're creating space for this area. But I don't want to do too much time. So let's go over to the other side and let's press. Now, here's something that I do, a little trick, because I literally do this. This is not like I'm just making up a routine to look good on camera. When I do this, you really want to do it like 3 minutes. And so then you're just stuck looking at your phone or even the treatment room, right? So typically when you're breathing properly, diaphragmatically, you should be able to do 5.5 breaths per minute. So we're looking at about 15 to 20 breaths. So when you're home, or there's just nights I can't sleep, and I'll just grab my tool and I just lay in bed and I just do this. And I just breathe 20 breaths, and I'm exercising my diaphragm. And when you breathe through the diaphragm, another little known fact, well, probably two, a study done in Australia, when you exhale 84% toxins. You increase the heat for weight loss. And when you breathe through your diaphragm, you gain 600% more oxygen to all the cells. Is that crazy? A really great book that says a lot more than I could probably ever repeat is James Nestor, Breathe. And I listen to it in the car when I'm traveling, and it's just amazing. It's amazing. The studies they have done, breathing through the nose, just breath for the body, the cells, regeneration. Just kind of pulling in there. Got another minute. And trust me, it hurts, but it's you. If it didn't hurt, you're not doing it right. Robin, look at the in the camera. Do you see the red marks?
Yes.
That's like, that's kind of the lymph.
Yeah.
So now we're going to come in right at the hair, Joe. We're going to go in this ear. I like to place it right here. And then there's a little ledge. I want you to go right in there. You're just going to hold. This is another great one. Your clients will love it. If you have two tools, you can do both at the same time. Just lifting. And again, if this gets too much, you can just set it on a table. If you're at the office and you've just got a little bit of time, just sit your elbow on the table. Taking deep breaths. We're going to do the other side, but in just new material, or if you're an esthetician in the class, we go into the orbital rim, we go into the kind of the eye socket. It's amazing because the fascia, again, adhering to the bone, it pulls all of the tissue underneath. And there are nights that I just go in and I lift up all of the tissue and then I'll just apply this pressure, and it's the most excruciating, but it will lift your eyes and give you almost like just a whole different youthful look. When we see these deep wrinkles and these deep lines, that's just fascia adhering on that bone, crinkling all that skin in. Okay, we're going to go to the other side now. Going right in that ear, pressing in and lifting up. It's 11:11. Sometimes we just don't realize, like if you touch your scalp, and you have to even wonder, as we get older, our hair changes. And if you're not old enough yet, it will. And we wonder, like, where did I like personally, I can't go as blonde as I used to go. I have to stay in the brown tones. And our scalp should be young, like our kids, you know, that mushy, like gushy little scalp. But that's just tightened fascia. So as you start to work your scalp and you just kind of take this tool around, you'll start to notice there's more blood flow to that tissue. And even working under here with the carotid artery, you know, that's the main artery to supply all the blood and oxygen to the face. So as you just work down there, you're getting more blood flow, and you'll notice a difference in pigmentation. You'll notice a difference in hair growth, facial color, the skin transparency. Give them 2 more minutes, and then we'll start with our microcurrent.
So will you do this to clients before microcurrent for this long of a time?
Yeah. Or I ask them to do it. Most of them have the ANMA and they know our routine. A lot
And
of things I ask them to partner with me on, because they understand that, you know, I can spend this time, but also in a treatment room, you could do 2 on one side. But most of the time I'll just say, hey, I want you to do this at home at least 3 or 4 times a week. Do it in the car. You can do it anywhere.
why hold the points versus like facial massage or moving the tool to get things flowing, like or starting on the décolleté, you know, how we'll get everything moving here and then go up. What would be the difference, and like why would it not be as much of an effect?
Because we finished. That's a great question. Fascia adheres to the bone and decompresses flow. And unless we decompress it, there's always going to be, we're going to have that frozen stream. So we have to melt the tissue to allow the lymphatic flow. If we don't, no matter, you can gua sha and they can leave looking like Cheryl Tiegs, but it's going to build up as soon as they go if they're not maintaining it every second. Okay, so let's grab our tools. We're going to start at the neck. What we're doing now is we've just released a lot of fascia, so we're going to create flow. And we're going to do that through movement. So I just want you to put microcurrent on the skin. We're not going to worry about holding. We're not going to worry about toning. We're just worrying about getting flow. And you may even find maybe we should have tried it. Like I can just feel the current so much more after just doing that little decompression. So it's kind of moving all around. So you might wonder, if microcurrent is microcurrent, why all these programs. Like, why do I have oxygenation? Or why is there lift? And why is there, or educate and erase? And what do these mean? We talked real earlier, right? In waveforms. And these waveforms are programmed to reach different depths. So kind of like LED, we have different nanometers that we see in color, and they have different responses in the skin tissue. It's the same with microcurrent, and those are the different programs. So in microcurrent, you're going to have erase, which is more superficial. That's going to be more skin related. And then educate is more muscle related. So that's why each program does its own thing. So now I've kind of gone over my
Do
whole
we
face.
feeling a tingling or anything? I don't feel anything with
Who just said that?
Jenny.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, how high is your unit?
I have a Pico toner. I have it on the P2 at 25.
Just turn it up to see if you can feel it, and then take it back down. You don't necessarily feel microcurrent. We've trained the client to want to with, you know, specific units on the market, but microcurrent works. Even if you don't feel it, you'll feel like an energy more than a feeling. And then worst case, put it on your tongue and see if you feel the current. You have to put both of them.
Oh yeah, I feel it. Okay.
Do you have a suggestion for starting out on, like, for example, the Pico, like what you would put it on? Or does it matter?
For you're on program 2,
Yes.
I put it on like 40.
Oh, goes up to 40.
So program 2 is tissue, and that's going to be collagen and elastin. So let's go ahead and just start at our neck now. And for those of you using the 3800, go to refine, or I can't remember. I should have probably brought mine in. But go to your next program because we're working collagen. You'd even go to tone if you wanted. And I like to hold, honestly, each location for 30 seconds. So you just kind of hold. And the reason is, and this is, you guys keep holding, but I'm going to lift my unit up. We've got positive and negative. When I created this, this is the optimal distance for that magnetic attraction of the hydrogen and the hydroxyl. Now, where this occurs is in the force or the amplitude of the waveform or the program. So we're at collagen and elastin, or the epidermis. The epidermis down to the dermis is about 0.3 millimeters. So if you're microneedling and you just want to work on the superficial skin, you don't need to go more than 0.3 in a needle length. And you don't need to go super hard or super harsh with microcurrent. So the microcurrent, hydrogen is coming out here, hydroxyl is coming out there, it's being forced into my tissue, and now they're meeting. And in this space, wherever these cells are, hydrogen is being emitted, and it's being picked up by the mitochondria and converted into ATP. The electrons that aren't picked up can be used to pair into the free radicals. Do you guys understand that? I mean, it's magical. It's literally like a direct antioxidant for your skin. Somebody has a sunburn, have them do a little microcurrent or LED and put on some vitamin C. It's the best antidote you could have. Now we're going to move up, and I just kind of move up. So I kind of put the positive where the negative was, and the negative on up. For this particular unit, you're going to hear some machines require a positive to be on top or a negative to be on top. That is not the case with this, because the lift is exactly a part where the magnetic attraction occurs. Where we say sometimes you have to have a negative on top or a positive, is because people would be using gloves and they'll have one up here and one down here. And I think it's positive pulls negative. So we always need the current to, or we need a draw. So that's why they say that.
The black one is the positive?
Hmm?
The black one is the positive?
The black one is negative.
Okay.
Also, what was I just gonna say? Negative pulls, positive. I like to hold. I'm a holder. Some people like to flow because that's kind of what estheticians do, but really holding, I feel, is best. Now we're going to come across right here. Now, Neurotris has kind of a direct. It's just a positive and a negative, and they meet. So we have two different ports. Sometimes, and it doesn't oscillate back and forth. It's like negative stays negative, positive stays positive. On the myotones, you'll see you don't have a red and a black, because myotone, they oscillate back and forth. So each probe is going to be positive for a little bit, and then it switches to negative for a little bit, positive for a little bit, and negative for a little bit. There's no real benefit to either. It's just how the manufacturer made the unit. You're still getting a trigger. It's just some people feel that having a direct negative and a direct positive is better. For the Axion, I am not sure how that is. I have a feeling he's a direct positive and a direct negative, but I'm not sure. Now we're going to move up. We're just holding. So we hold because everyone's got a different impedance in the skin. So just because you put the probe on the skin doesn't mean that, you know, the electrons get through. You have to hold, and you have to think about that, all of the tissue and everything when we're thinking of skin. And that's why I like to hold versus glide, because I never really feel like we can get a direct penetration into the tissue. And now we're just going to come up and cup the jawline. And Callie, turn your unit the other way. There you no, try it the other way, where you've got a probe sideways. There. Hold like that. Because now you've got the current going back and forth in this area. And this is really great to kind of loosen up those toxins, and then it would be a great gua sha after you did something like that. So one thing you can do, if you have the lift holding it here, one of my favorite things is I like to go just to the 2. And now the full force of the microcurrent is just going through these 2 points. And now we're going to just drag across to the jaw. And down. Let's do that again. Going across. And down. So let's go to the other side. And we're just going to hold. I think one of the biggest things as an esthetician and a consumer, and maybe one of the stopping factors of even starting microcurrent, is people really wonder, am I doing it right? And it's really having the probe on the skin. The probe on the skin is right. you're initiating healing. There's no magical, like you have to do the muscle this way or you have to do it that way. I will get a lot of flack from Golgi tendon believers. And I think that, we do have our nerve endings in here, but unless we release the fascia, you can plump the muscle, but the fascia is always going to pull it underneath the cheekbone until that has been released. When you release that, your muscle will naturally resume its natural state. It doesn't need to be reminded where to go. The body's not that ignorant. It knows where to go. It knows its natural state. It's us working on our posture and our breath and releasing adhesions to make microcurrent the most effective. And coming up.
So if you were, I'm sorry, like for the cheek, if you were like releasing it, would you just hold your anma or whatever just right underneath the cheekbone?
But instead of using that end, use the other end.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that other end is devastating to the tissues. It's great if you just kind of want to do your scalp, but you can't, we don't want to jiggle. Jiggling is just kind of tearing these fibers, creating more adhesions. When we press, we're decompressing. Which completely, I know, goes against what she says, but when you're working the body, it's different. But the face is way too delicate to go in and work that aggressively, unless you just have a heck of a lot of fat. And now coming up to the jawline. Does anybody feel it a little bit differently on one side than the other?
I feel it more on this side.
Yeah, there's always a side that just responds or just has a different sensory. Now we're going to take to the tips. And we're going to pull. Into the tips. And pull. Now we're just going to go right from the end. So you're really covering the buccinator and the rissosaurus. And this is the muscle that kind of attaches and pulls our mouth back. So a lot of times we are starting to see clients and maybe friends, or if you're not an esthetician, they're developing lines in their cheeks. And this is from gravity pulling the tissue down and the body kind of like, and then still kind of talking, but the body trying to hold it. We're starting to try to build almost like false walls to maintain this tissue from falling down. And I'm going to remove this while you're holding. Actually, I'll wait till another location. Now I just want you to take the point outside of the cheek or the lip and drag across. And drag across. And next we're going to you're going to hold the cheek. So while you're holding the cheek, I'm going to explain a little bit to you about collagen and elastin. So elastin runs vertically and collagen runs horizontally. And they're stuck together kind of like by a magnetic force. And when it's together, we have a solid wall to hold things in place. But as adhesions develop, there becomes almost like a pocket. And the elastin, and let's just pretend along the jawline. The elastin's like, hey, buddy, like I can't hold this fat in place anymore. I'm starting to give out. But collagen's back here saying, listen, I'm just trying to keep the head upright. Like I can't help you out right now. But as we release these adhesions, the magnetic force becomes pliable again. And so, yes, it is possible to tighten skin and regenerate if we can get rid of the adhesions. And now take this probe, right? There's that little muscle right there. And pull across. And that's why it's such an amazing tool, microcurrent with fascia release.
God, I really see a difference on this side.
Isn't that crazy? Okay,
Yeah.
let's go now to this side, holding. And we had almost 70-hour-mile winds for over 24 hours. There's so many trees that have been knocked over. I thought the roof was going to blow off last night. It just was crazy.
You're located.
Las Vegas, Nevada. And come to the lip. We aren't even on lifting yet. But we do the similar thing for lifting as well, because holding the unit, we're letting the current do the work at the depth the program says to do. And now placing it underneath the cheek, kind of cupping that bone area.
Does the amount of pressure matter as far as how much you're, okay.
No, only if we're decompressing tissue. And I don't know about you guys, like, I think we're going to do a microcurrent challenge coming up, and it just, you get videos on it if you can't make it, but it's just like Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, kind of like a group microcurrent or a microcurrent routine for you to do. And it will include the fascia decompression as well. It's great for you to do because if you do it, it's easier if you can meet, because the accountability factor is always nice. So now we're just going to put this right over the eye. And see, I have it here and underneath. And now I'm getting that whole orbital rim at the same time. But it is fun when you do it and you just see the difference in your own skin in 30 days. It just makes you a believer.
So with that, do you meet and you do the routine together every time?
Yeah.
Love that.
What time will you be doing it? In like morning or?
Yeah, it has to be almost early for most people because you've got East Coast. So it would probably be like 7 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, and then be 10 o'clock Eastern Time. But if you just, I know it's a lot to ask of blackout clients, but kind of go in that eye, right of the eyebrow. We're just going to place it right there. But it does make it worth it. And if you just commit to it, it's like, you just have to decide, I'm just going to see what my face would be like. But it's always kind of fun. We've done it a ton of times. I would consider doing it at nighttime. It's just an hour. If people wanted to do it, I would commit to nighttime, like 6, 7, 8. It would be 9 o'clock though, Eastern Standard Time. Or 6 o'clock Pacific. And the other side. So next we're going to do this whole thing again. We're going to hold the neck, but I want just more of a low muscle. I don't want you contracting the the neck muscles. We always want the neck muscles to stay long and lengthened. We don't need to contract them on purpose. So have your muscle, like, as you know, because we're going to tone these muscles, but we're not going to strain them. And we're going to now work vertically. We worked horizontally. Now we're going to work vertically. So it's like a cross hatching effect.
Are we still in P2 with the
No,
picotoner?
now we're going to switch to P1.
Should I stay on,
You're going to go to
educate?
educate.
Now I'm in the 3800 refined Pica,
Go to
Nano.
lift. You can go to
Go to-
tone or lift.
Okay.
Oops, I need to turn that down.
$45 for the P1 on the Pico toner as well.
Yeah, you might want to feel like a little tingle, but not a contraction. And I'm moving it forward now. Oh, I know I was going to tell you, Neurotris, Pico, anything in that is cleared for the thyroid. I think that probably MyoLift is fine. It's really on you. I'll have to ask Pooja next time. And what's nice is you're hitting underneath the jaw depending on the length of your neck. And come to the center. How often do you guys do microcurrent?
At work or at home?
On yourself,
Oh, not as often as I would like.
right?
After you've been doing it all day, you don't want to fool with yourself.
The goal is for me to do every Sunday, but it doesn't.
Well, we could just do a Sunday challenge. And then it'd be up to you guys to try to do it another time that week. Or, we all meet for sure on a Sunday, and then I'll do like a Wednesday night or something that
So-
everyone could just try to make it to, or you just get that video.
I was being pretty consistent with it for a while, but now I'm realizing there's so much more I could have done to make it more effective, or I don't know how effective it was,
It's always effective. So now I'm sandwiching in between these four, this jaw right there. Microcurrent's always effective. And it just is, and it's the damnedest thing. Like, I'm the same way. It's not like, I'm just this microcurrent like perfection person. I'm the same thing. I get done in the treatment room and it's like I don't want to do it. But we go on a road trip, it's the first thing I pack. Because I'll just do it in the car. I'll do it for 6 hours if we're on a 6-hour road trip. I'm like, this is great. And then I start to think, I'm like, I'm not doing anything when we're watching TV. Sometimes I'm on my computer or something, but for the most part, you can be doing it, especially on some of these portable units. And if you just challenge yourself, like, you try to drink water, kind of inching to the center, just to say, I just want to see what will happen if I do this 2 to 3 times a week for a month. I just want to see what will happen. And take a picture, and your complexion will change, your skin tone will change, your face shape will change, everything changes. And when you start doing it and you can show your before and afters to your clients, they'll start doing it. You know, it'll just start happening.
Is this area still effective for doing it on a client with a beard, like a male client?
With enough gel, yes. I know the goatees that the guys have, it's kind of hard, but you can make it, and you might have to turn up it a little bit. It's really just getting the gel so you can get in there. And move. I don't mean to promote the lift while we're doing it. This was not the intention of the microcurrent class. But those of you have it, it's just so damn easy, isn't it? It just
Yeah.
makes life so much easier. And to the side.
I'm so thrilled that I'm able to take that attachment home. I didn't know what that piece was, and now I'm like thrilled. I'm so excited to bring
Oh,
it
yeah.
home.
And let's just go all the way up. Now, if you really wanted to get detailed and you wanted to be like, I just really want the best, you could go back over horizontally. You could do horizontal, vertical on skin, and then horizontal, vertical on muscle. But your key is you really just want to hold it about 30 seconds. And this gives the time for the muscle to do the work. And when we're done, we'll go over with the handle like a gua sha, just kind of moving that fluid, and you can see the difference. Now, Lauren and Christina, with your TMJ, holding just in this area, sandwiching this will really help you with the inflammation and kind of the angry, the hotness in the tissue. And doing the fascial decompression beforehand, that'll work. And I'll go over some places because it's a lot in the occipital as well. The funny thing is, the pain cause is rarely at the site of the pain. So with TMJ, it starts in the hands and in the forearms. So maybe you're on your computer a lot, so I'm going to show you some hand things you can do. And then I'm going to give you a home program that you guys can look into that will really help you.
I've had multiple surgeries on my hands because of that and major issues with my forearm muscles. So that's crazy. I never even put the two together.
Oh, it's nuts. And you know, a lot of pelvic, I mean, so much. I've been working with somebody that we've only worked the feet and it changed his whole face. So the extremities have so much to do with the face. The face is kind of the result of it that we care enough to pay attention to. Does that make sense? Our vanity, we're staring all the time, but the clues are all there. It's just if we have a bunion, we can hide that. We can put a pad, we can put an orthotic, we can change that. But our faces, we can't. And so when we notice something changing in our face, it has to be a signal that it's happening somewhere else. And so when our shoulders are brought forward, this is the turning of the hand in. And this turning, I'm attaching the fascia to this bone. And as this happens, I'm propelling forward, and the jaw has to go back because the body's about physics. And fascia is going to keep you balanced no matter what. And so if the head has to come forward, the jaw has to come back, and this knocks the vertebrae out and the cervical vertebrae, and this creates a whole tension and a collapsing of the cranial and the face forward. So you just kind of, everything shifts and starts to just push that little joint. But as you start to work the fingers and the forearms and even the muscles, the biceps, you'll start to see a lightening in everything. moving over.
Can I ask why some devices, like the Pure Life, for instance, it makes me twitch so much more? I can physically feel it so much more. And also, supposedly, like you don't need to turn it up more for it to be more effective. What are your thoughts?
So what's happening is you might be just on a nerve and you're getting a twitching, because microcurrent could cause a twitching if it's just on a cranial nerve. But many times, a lot of consumer devices, consumers are driving sales to marketing companies. And if a consumer doesn't feel something, the consumer assumes it's not working. The consumer's been trained for pain. So microcurrent is not a painful treatment, but because somebody just said, I can't feel it, it's not working, somebody, marketing company said, well, let's make it so they can feel it. So more than likely, this is a microcurrent unit, but it's a sawtooth waveform. Remember, we saw those waveforms? So a sine waveform is very, very gentle. It's very passive. A square waveform is effective, but yet passive. A sawtooth is like a zip, 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 zip. So they probably chose a microcurrent unit, but the waveform is a sawtooth in order to create a sensation so the consumer feels that it's working. Make sense? And all the way over to the center. Like right now, there's a little twitch because I'm on a nerve, but that doesn't mean that this is a millicurrent. And while we're sitting here, I'll go into a little bit about, we hear a lot of times, it shouldn't be over 340. It shouldn't be over a frequency of 340. Frequency is the amount of movement in the wave form and the amount, the frequency of the current reaching the cell. And so some people say it can't be over 340. But there was a test done by Chang in the 80s, and it's called microcurrent, low-level microcurrent, and its effect on rat skin. And this was the big study. Now we're going to go right, I'm going to take those 4 right in the orbital rim. This study has been quoted and used in a ton of microcurrent literature because that was the study that said anything more than 340 was going to reduce ATP versus increase ATP. But that wasn't necessarily true, because here are the parameters. They took tissue and they directly attached the electrodes to that tissue at hand, and they submerged it in amino acids. And then they measured the effects of the current on the tissue. Well, first off, we have impedance to deal with, and we've got a body, a human body, we've got adhesions, we've got different lifestyles. So sometimes you do need a force of more than 350. But in the actual study, that 350 actually went up to 850 before there was a decline in the production of ATP. So don't get hung up on a lot of studies. People will manipulate studies to say what they need them to say, and they'll only choose a part of a segment to reinforce their point. You know, if you're going to go on that, then you need to read the whole study and really understand it. So most units, again, like the units you guys have brought up that you have, and the Casey unit, and you know, there's some TAMA, all of these are great units. Don't get hung up like, you know, an armchair chemist or, you know, electrical engineer and try to like decipher if it's a good unit or not. Most units are really good. Most units are really effective. The segment that isn't is going to be human error, human impedance, human diet. It's not going to be the unit. 9 times out of 10, there's a blocking factor you're not getting or learning about. Oh, I love that along the eye. It just felt so good. And to the center. How many of you have the ball attachment or direct attachment? You all have the balls?
Out of the balls.
Okay, good.
So
We'll work with the balls real quick too. Go ahead and we'll do the forehead. And then we've got some time, so I'll show you just working the little ball attachment around smaller spaces like underneath the eye and the lips. And then we'll finish with the anma again. Yep. All right, so let's go ahead and detach the unit. You have just the little balls. And let's just kind of make little circles around the lips. Now, what's really cool, and you can do it on you, and make sure you have stuff on your lips. Place it on the lip and then on the belly of the lip. Yeah, good. Now just hold. It's like Simon says, hold.
Mhm.
And again, you can start to really feel the current in there. Now go to the top, kind of squeeze and kind of in that upper lip, kind of pulling. I don't know why this camera goes in and out like that. There it goes. Goes kind of pulling. And now go to the bottom. This just increases blood flow. This is great for people that get lip injections. Not forcing a flow through that tissue.
It doesn't matter which is on top, right?
Nope.
The red or the black. Okay. I didn't think so, but
And the upper lip. You can kind of shorten this little area, plumping up that vermilion border. And then underneath the eye, it's kind of the similar thing. This is just real delicate tissue. It feels good, but it's just another way to get some use out of this area. Bringing, I like to hold right here with my eye closed. What I want you to do now is trace an analog clock. So start at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. Now we're going to go to the upper and lower. Same thing. 12 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 12. This starts to exercise the muscles. But we talked a little bit about fascia, and it pulls that eye back in the socket. So when you can stretch that, create stretch, and yet we're giving the tissue energy, it starts to change the way that eyeball is set in that socket. Let's kind of warm up the tissue on the other side, increasing the blood flow. And with the right into the corner of that eye muscle, close your eye, go to 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and switch. Reversing. 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and 12. Relax. How different do your eyes feel after doing just that simple little?
Yeah.
Yeah, they feel clearer, honestly, a bit more awake.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and take your lift or your Anma, and let's just kind of brush down.
Are we plugging it back into the?
Oh no, we're done with microcurrent. We're just gonna kind of flush the tissue down to the side and down. Into the mid cheek, down. And to the orbital rim, kind of tracing that eyebrow and down. And the forehead. And we're going to switch to the other side, the neck, down. Side. And to the jaw. And the mid face. And the orbital rim. And then the forehead. Right, so that is our microcurrent treatment. Tell me if you have, I'd love to hear any questions you may have.
Cleaning them, can you just
Yeah.
use like alcohol on a wipe and just do the ball part, or?
You could take just like a toothbrush or a nail brush and dish soap, antibacterial dish soap, and just kind of scrub in there and then dry it out.
And then the little balls here.
Same.
Okay.
Yeah, the one thing you want to make sure is every now and then, if you're doing a ball attachment, you can get gel in these little discs here. I don't know if you can see that. So I take like a little wooden Q-tip, and you can pop out. Here it goes. I got to get a different tool, but you can pop out, or you actually probably got a screwdriver in with your kit. You can lift these out, the little washer, and I'll just kind of clean them with alcohol. And then you just set it right back in to this hole. It's all magnetic. So you just lift it out. It'll come out. Wash that little tip and put it in. If for some reason these washers break, which they have before, you just send us an email and we send you out new washers. And if you need new ball attachments or something, we send all of that out. These balls should never have to come off. They do unscrew, but the washers protect them. So just clean it with, like I said, a nail brush or a toothbrush and you're fine.
Do you typically go through all the programs with the lift, like on the 3800 if I was doing a client? No.
No, so Pam will tell you, like, there's a Pico Refine and a Nano Refine. So Pico, I think, is for really thin skin. Nano is for thicker. So you would
Okay.
use one of those. Tone, I love. And then Lift, or you might have an auto program. I personally use the Wave in the treatment room. So usually I kind of do just the Refine, Nano Refine, or Pico Refine, depending on their skin. I'll do Tone, and then I just do Auto Sculpt. But
Which
when
would be
you
built
release,
for me.
I'll spend a lot on facial massage and fascia release. And then I go in to do microcurrent because I don't have to do it so long.
Okay.
It depends what facial they sign up for the most part. If it's a
Okay.
microcurrent facial, then I do about 20 minutes of fascia release and then the rest microcurrent.
Okay. Okay.
And don't be afraid to sell your clients a microcurrent unit, because you can get a lot more results if they're doing it at home. It never feels the same when you do it on yourself. They love to have it done on them, but you'll get better results if they have it at home, or depending upon your book. But it's really hard to get clients to come in 2 or 3 times a week for a kickoff session. So you give them homework. Go, I just want you to work this. I want you to take this and that, just whether they're doing gloves or, probes are sometimes difficult for clients. That's why the lift is kind of nice for them, but it never feels the same. Even when someone uses the lift on me, I'm always like, oh my God, it never feels this way when I do it. It never feels this good.
Do you have any videos of you doing this whole routine and also like a full facial protocol with this?
I have, if you go to janeman.pro, There's a lot of facials or facial videos using the lift that you can kind of put together, but there's no right or wrong. You'll come up with it. It's just using it and exploring it. I mean, if I'm on collagen sometimes, I love to, and you'll have this one on video, I'll come up and I kind of go here, and then sometimes I come up and I'll go here, and then I just drag all the way up. I mean, it's just such a conforming machine that it fits everywhere. So if you're on collagen, you can flow and you can kind of sculpt and hold and come up, and it's made to just flow. So jman.pro has a lot of just some videos, and YouTube has a lot of videos that you can kind of figure.
With the Pico, is collagen the P2 or P?
Yes.
Yeah,
So
okay.
yeah.
And then Jane, I bought the gloves, but they didn't come with clips.
So, oh, because you have the you need some of these, don't you? Okay,
Yes.
we'll send you out. You have to send an email, but we have little attachments for that.
Okay. And then with the gloves, if I'm working on a client, do you recommend eye gloves underneath?
Yes, you need to use like a paper, kind of a glove like this.
Okay.
Otherwise, the current goes into your hands. It's not, there isn't a barrier.
Okay, a paper glove, so a nitrile glove won't work.
You can use, yeah, you can use any kind of glove.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Anything else? All right, ladies, this was so much fun. I have your email, so I'll email you for the next microcurrent challenge. Thank you for your feedback on how that would be most effective for you. I think you're right. Maybe a Sunday live, and then on Wednesday morning, I send you out a new video to do. Or I have a Wednesday morning class. If you can make it, great. Otherwise, you get the video. And you will get this video. I'm gonna just, I don't do any editing. It's just as raw as it is. I'll send it to you within the next hour. It'll get transformed, and then I'll send it to you in a YouTube link. I appreciate your time and questions, and then please email me with anything else you have.
Thank you.
So much.
So
Awesome.
much.
Thank
Have a
you.
great
Okay,
day.
Lauren, you're gonna stay on. Chrissy, you can
Sure.
stay on too. I'll talk to you a little bit about TMJ.
Thank you.
Mhm. All right, so there's a program I really think you guys will do and you should look into, and I'll send you a link. It's called
Thank you.
block therapy. And
I
block,
actually signed up for those emails.
huh?
I just signed up for their newsletter.
Yes, I'll send you a link to get maybe the 9 days classes, but
Okay, thank you.
this will be one of the best things you can do for yourself. I partnered with Deanna on beauty programs because I started to see there's nothing else going to really make change like doing the full body. Deanna has broken this down so beautifully, starting at the feet. There's a posture reset. So you're going to see things for the face, but your issue doesn't lie in the face. So what I want you to do is there's a foot series, a pronator series, 1 and 2, and a posture reset. And that's going to start to align everything. And then you could go into the head, neck, and scalp. And those 3 will be incredibly effective for you. I'll send you a link, and I have to see the link with the free trial. So you don't have to buy the blocks right away. You can use a towel. But I do suggest buying the blocks because they're amazing. And I don't have one in here. But for TNJ, and you know, when I was younger, I had really a lot of jaw issues, and my zygomatics got so built up. Everyone thought, and my temples got so hollow, and they almost, one of the dermatologists called it like this AIDS thing. They're like, oh, you're like an AIDS patient, you know, just everything is just so pronounced. And doctors were like, oh, we'll do liposuction, we'll do this, and it was like, I didn't just gain weight in my cheeks. Like, there's got to be a different answer. And this fascial reset and the decompression was a huge game changer. And while I'm slowly trying to change an industry, I have all of my clients on block therapy. It is one of the best things you can do for yourself. It will be amazing. You'll learn so much, and it'll provide such relief for your grinding and everything. That that's something that I just think, like I said, I can't say enough about it. So I'm going to include that in your two ones that you can look
Thank
at.
you so much. Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you. And I haven't, so I was looking at they had like the facial paddle, but they're out of that. So I could just get an Anma, right? And do that.
You can
once I
get an
get that.
Anma, and then you can use you could even go, do any of you have kids? Like those blocks, they have like little dowels, or the back of the one tool. You know, I want you to buy the Anma. I think that'd be great. I have a tool coming out though, that's like a little triangle, and I merged like 3 or 4, kind of like the Anma, I merged 3 or 4 tools together. This one is going to be my favorite, and it's solid wood, and it's going to be great. They're going to be out of the paddle for a little bit just because there's such growth in the past, but I'll send you like how to get there. I have to look up the link to get to you, but I'll get that for you guys.
Thank you so much. This was
Yeah.
so educational, insightful, helpful. Thank you so much.
You're so
Thank you
welcome. I'm
so
glad it
much.
was good. Thanks so
Yeah.
much for joining. It was nice to see you.
Nice
Okay,
to
Thank you.
Nice to
talk
meet
to
you.
you. You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.